What does it actually take to become successful? And by the way, what is success actually? It might be different for you than it is to me, and our guest has her own opinion on it as well. Today, we're talking to someone who's going to teach us more about the mindset you need to go from, for example, being laid off or having an eating disorder to building your own, maybe multi-million dollar business. This episode is really great and you should listen to it. Hello, and welcome to the Fast Forward Amy Show, the show where we lift your life and business with simple strategies. I'm Fast Forward Amy, your host and coach, and I'll bring you a new episode every Tuesday. I'm very excited that today on the podcast, I get to welcome a very special guest who has worked for some of the world's biggest magazines and all kinds of things that I don't really understand well, because she used to be an editor there, for example, at Virgin. But more than that, she's someone I actually look up to. And I don't say this often because I usually think that looking up to someone means putting yourself under them. But this person, I don't put myself under her, also not in a dirty way. I just really look up to her because she inspires me on a daily basis with her amazing storytelling skills, her incredible focus on her business, and just everything that she's gone through these past 2 years during a worldwide pandemic, between getting laid off and now running what is soon going to be a multi-million dollar business. They already cracked $1 million mark, and I don't exactly know where they are right now, but I do know that they're building towards a $10 million business. I'm super excited to welcome today's guest all the way from Australia, Georgia Rickard. Hello, Georgia. Welcome to the Fast Forward Amy Show.
Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be here, although I do need to just qualify before we get into this that my voice is a little bit scratchy and crackly already, because even though it is only the second week of work in January, I've already been talking so much that I'm starting to lose my ability to speak.
Yeah, that's so crappy. I get that. I've been working on my voice for so often the past 2 years, but still sometimes it just pops up and then you have a really big problem. And I just woke up, so I will disclaim that too. My voice is I haven't spoken to anyone yet today except for my cats.
Well, I feel honored to be included in such an esteemed group of audience members.
Yes, I'm so happy to be doing this. I was like, oh, it's 8 a.m. for me. What time is it for you? Because you're in Australia.
Yes, it's actually it's 6 p.m. here. So it's it's still daylight hours. It's summertime. I mean, I try not to work past 6 p.m. on a typical weeknight, but you know how it goes. It's not that weird for me to still be at my desk.
Yeah, I want to definitely talk about that. Before we continue, because I might have forgotten to say something, but who are you, Georgia? Can you quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, I can do that for you. Yes. So in Australia, most people would know me as a magazine editor and a journalist. I was both of those things for a very long time, about 15 years. I started my career writing for the world's biggest selling magazine, Cosmopolitan. And by 23, I was the youngest magazine editor in Australia. 26, I was editing the biggest selling travel title in Australia. And my last role was with Virgin Australia as the editor-at-large. Dream job being an airline ambassador until, of course, COVID hit. And I started my own business 2 years ago, and that is called Phoenix. And Phoenix is a company that I started with two other women. One of them is Australia's first professional Instagrammer, who helped pioneer the world's global influencer industry. Her name's Lauren Barth, and the other lady is Kate Rich, and Kate is a mindset and business strategist. And between the three of us, we help empower business owners, particularly women, to start and scale businesses that have meaning and influence, and empower people to basically lead lives that they love, that are, not just rewarding and meaningful, but also financially rewarding and meaningful, right? So yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, it's very inspiring because we've known each other for I don't know how long, a couple of years, because we met each other in Sydney because my brother normally lives in Sydney, but now he's living in London. I was actually thinking, is he ever going to go back to Sydney? I don't know. My brother is a photographer, so you guys have traveled together, I think, and took like a press trip or something.
Yes, no, I actually, so Maddie Well, obviously, having spent a lot of my career in the travel media landscape, with time I started being contracted to shoot and develop content campaigns and digital campaigns for destinations. And I had Maddie come along on one of those trips to be the director of one of them. So that was one of the jobs that we did together. And yeah, we also had a business prior to the business that we have now, Phoenix, which was kind of a side hustle, which was all about teaching people how to get paid to travel. And he very kindly spoke at a couple of our events. So he's a dear friend, and I really hope that he comes back to Australia at some point. Bloody hell.
I hope he doesn't, Georgia. I hope he doesn't. I like him in almost the same time zone. It's so much easier for me to talk to him when he's in London.
I'll wrestle you for it.
Yes. No, but I always meet really cool people through Matthew. So that's a fun side effect, is that we get to meet now, and we've been following each other's journey a bit, I think. And a while back, I was thinking about reorganizing the podcast, and I thought, okay, I've done all of these episodes by myself now, sometimes with a guest, but it's not like I don't have anything left to talk about, because that will probably never happen. I like talking, but I was thinking maybe I can do an episode with a guest every other week, and I can interview people who've grown $1 million businesses, and who can talk about the mindset and the struggles and the switches that they've made in order to grow a business like that. Because I mean, I can tell my story, but it's not nearly as inspiring as other people's stories, because everyone starts from a different perspective. And I thought, if I can offer that to my audience, that would be really great, because it's all about the real and raw. It's all about being honest of like the ups and downs. And I think too often we get to see either the rags and riches story, like in the States, it's like, oh, I had absolutely nothing and I was living in a box. And now I have 10 really big fancy cars. Or we just see what's happening now. But I think what we just started talking about, like we went on Zoom and you're like, how are you doing? And I was like, good. And I'd asked you, how are you doing? You're like, yeah, but it's an intense week. Like, what's happening there? So that's what I want to talk about, is the real and raw behind the scenes of the journey, but also right now, because I feel like, especially in the business sphere, we tend to, like a lot of business coaches, for example, they say that everything is sunshine and fucking rainbows right now, but it is not. For me, it's not either. Like yesterday, I had a really crappy day. Team-wise, everything got resolved, but do I feel great about what happened yesterday? No. Did I have a crappy day? Yes. And I want to be more honest about that stuff.
Well, look, I think I'm honored to be here, and I'm very happy to talk to you about that. Before we do dive in, I have to say, you said that your story isn't inspiring, and I have to just disagree without even knowing the specifics. Honestly, as you've just so beautifully said, business is hard. It's not easy. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. And anybody who's managed to scale a business of any size, or really, but certainly to 7 figures and beyond, but just to be in business is actually inspiring. And so, yes, without knowing the specifics of your journey, I would have to kindly disagree.
Yeah, because I agree. I do think it's inspiring. I just think that people who followed me have heard my story now. And I think we need more proof of the fact that it's possible, not just for me. Because people sometimes are like, yeah, but you are smart or whatever. And I'm like, okay, but first and foremost, I want to put this out there. I've read a bunch of studies about this. Although I do think my IQ helps me. This is weird to say, but there is no correlation between intelligence and business success.
I would absolutely agree with that. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about what the research said? Because I've got my own opinions, but I feel like you've got.
Yeah, I feel like probably one of the biggest reasons for that, but this is not research driven, is more like the smarter you get, sometimes the easier it is to hold yourself back, because the more reasons you have to not do stuff, because you see all of the risks and stuff. And sometimes people with maybe less theoretical intelligence and more street smarts will be just more like, yes, let's fucking go. So yeah, also I swear on this podcast, I'm sorry.
That is
what do you think about that? What do you think about that?
What definitely naivety and not overthinking things, and not the paralysis of analysis is something that so many of us who are gifted with high IQs struggle with. So normal. But I mean, whether it's EQ or IQ or whatever, I can't really say definitively with it, and I'm not a researcher. But what I can say through my own anecdotal observation is that success in business ultimately is a game of emotional regulation. That is the thing that ultimately has you succeed or not, right? If you're somebody who puts yourself out there and the fear of failure and the vulnerability that you feel is so intense and so extreme that when you do inevitably fail or, get rejected or whatever, whatever pitfall or speed bump that you face that happens, because it does happen, right? That's business. There's plenty of falling over. If you can't work out how to pick yourself back up again and regulate your emotional state in a way that sees you stay calm enough and secure enough and reassured enough in yourself to continue on despite setbacks, then seeing as you've sworn, you're fucked. Right? Like those of us who are successful ultimately are the ones who have the ability to continue putting one foot in front of the other, even when we don't want to, even when things are hard, even when, we're facing failure and setbacks. And those of us who have learned how to manage and regulate our stress and deal with the challenges and the pressure that go hand in hand with growing a business.
Yeah, I love that term you used, emotional regulation. It's I think it's a matter of, I used to feel like, oh shit, this is so hard and I suck at this sometimes. And then I started realizing it was around the time that I hired my first full-time employees in both of my businesses that I just came to this point where I thought, this is too hard. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I need to go back. Maybe I need to stop because maybe this is just too hard for me. And it pulled me back to a time where I started university after a year of living abroad in Italy. And I remember that first semester, I hadn't had like mathematics and all of that stuff in over a year. I remember taking those exams and I had grown up thinking I was smart. And all of a sudden it was so difficult. And I even had a conversation with my parents where they were like, okay, so maybe this degree is too hard for you. Maybe you can't do this, like in a very respectful way. And then obviously I was like, no, I can do this. And I ended up doing it. Woo! But I remember just that time of thinking, maybe this is too hard for me. Maybe I just can't. And then when that hit me, when I was hiring Laura, actually, who started as my right hand, and then now she's had a baby and stuff, and like soon she's coming back. So it's all, we've grown so much together. I just remember feeling, this is not good. I can't do it. It's too difficult. Should I stop here? Should I go back to just working with freelancers, for example? And then I realized, and that's been one of my biggest growing opportunities from the past few years, this is where the game gets played. This is growth. This is not difficulty. This is not, no, you're supposed to stop. This is just you growing and it's hurting.
Yes. That is because growth is pain. Growth is painful. That's why they're called growing pains, right? If it hurts, it's probably working. Do you know what? I remember last year, and every time we've had a big like chunk of success that we've like bitten off, or not last year, this was a couple of years ago, we won a big contract, by far bigger than anything that we had won to date. And we won it, and I was elated for about 20 minutes, and then the reality sunk in, like, oh shit, I'm going to have to deliver on this. Oh my gosh. Right. And then the anxiety and the pressure of delivering on that contract, it stuck around for the next few months, right? Like I was just, because we'd taken such a big bite out of the apple of business, and chewing and digesting on that apple, it took time. I didn't have the capacity. My mouth wasn't big enough yet to be able to comfortably swallow that. And
sounds very dirty, Georgia, but okay.
Well, there's a few more analogies in there I'm sure I can pull out, but it's a little bit like, I think every time you take a step and you level up, and the game of growth and leveling up in business is this: every time you do level up and you expose yourself to a new degree of risk, it always feels extremely, extremely uncomfortable to begin with. It's a little bit like when you first get dumped, right? It's always really painful to begin with, and then with time you become okay with it, right? And business is a bit like that, right? You to begin with, as soon as you're exposed to these amazing, exciting things, or you level up, it's scary, and you're like, can I hold this pressure? And then with time, you're like, oh yeah, of course I can hold this pressure, and then it's no big thing anymore. And I think that the danger, and one of the places where so many people get stuck, and the reason that their businesses don't grow and they just stop at a certain level, is because when they try and increase the pressure, and the voice in their head says, I can't do this, maybe this degree is too hard for me, they listen to it and they believe it to be true, and they don't hold their nerve long enough to sit with the pressure and let it subside, and for it to become okay, and for them to be comfortable in the discomfort. And so, I think if only more people knew just what fruits awaited those of us who are willing to just go out a little bit further on the limb and just wait, right? Like if you can just sit into the discomfort for 5 minutes more, typically, like, the most amazing things will happen for you, and you will adjust.
I teach my my business freedom elevator clients this with this visual. So actually, someone on my team made a reel out of this with me being like, kind of like a Mario puppet. I'm gonna post it when we launch this podcast again. So it's like you have your comfort zone, and then there's like this, like, and it's like a bubble around you, and then like a few meters ahead, or like miles, I don't know, there's like this other zone. It's another circle, and that's where the gains are, and be that like, strength gains or financial gains or whatever. And I imagine this to be the situation where you're just like standing in that comfort zone and you see what you want, and it's like there, you can see it. But you're wearing this sumo suit. You know what they do at parties sometimes, like two people like in a sumo suit and they wrestle each other. So you're wearing the suit. But at the same time, you have this elastic band wrapped around your middle, and it's attached to the center of the circle where your comfort zone is. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna go to that gain zone. And like, you see the goal, eyes on the prize, and you start like walking there. And all of a sudden you realize that on the sides, like between the circles, are a bunch of kids with dodgeballs, and they start hitting you, and they just start throwing the balls at you. And you know what? They hurt, but it's manageable because you're wearing the suit. But like every time a ball hits you, kind of like a piece of the suit gets chipped off, and like you start feeling it more and more, because like, and the moment that you take your eyes off of that place of gains, and you're also getting pulled back by the elastic band, by the way, so it's really difficult. You have to be really strong to do this. And you start looking at the dodgeballs. The moment that happens, they start hitting you in the face, and you're so surprised because it hits you straight in the face, and you've lost track of where you were going. You're disoriented, it starts getting dark, and you just get pulled back, and you go back to your comfort zone. But if you keep your eyes on that zone of gains, you start noticing that the balls are going to keep coming regardless, but you can get there. And the more you keep going there, the elastic band is also getting worn out. And that's starting to give you more and more like space to go there, and you can get there. And after a while, when you reach that spot, maybe the dodgeballs hit you, but they can't hit you in the eye if you're not looking at them. And maybe you find a helmet, you put on the helmet, and then you get to the gain zone. And after a while, that becomes your new comfort zone, and the game starts all over. That's what I perceive to be growth in business. It's painful sometimes, but it's also like you can normalize it. Like the dodgeballs are coming, but it's just a bunch of kids throwing balls. Like it's not great aim. And it doesn't have to hurt. No, it has to hurt. Sometimes you're just going to get smacked in the face. And the dodgeballs are fear, failure, doubt, imposter syndrome, your limiting beliefs from your childhood. All of that stuff is what I think the dodgeballs are. What do you think of my analogy?
I love that. I mean, look, the other thing that I would add to those dodgeballs are things like, I don't know, a global pandemic, a recession, like just all of the general climate and conditions that are part of the business environment, right? Like that is life. It is filled with unexpected pitfalls and speed bumps, and just like that saying that John Lennon had, right? Life is what happens when we're busy making other plans. And it's true. It's the same for business. There are always going to be challenges, and whether they're internal or external, usually a combination of both. And as you say, the having the skill and the ability to keep your eye on the prize regardless, which is where emotional regulation comes in, right? Because as soon as you start to look at the dodgeballs and you lose yourself into reacting, you lose yourself into the cycle of being reactive, and then you just waste precious energy that could be spent focusing on where you're going. I think that is probably, I mean, it's a constant game of mindfulness, and it's definitely a game of confidence. And I think particularly for women, there are so many things socially that have not really seen us socialized in order to have the confidence that men are groomed to have, right? Like, I don't know about you, but certainly in Australia with my generation, God, can't even believe I'm saying that now. I feel so old saying that. I'm 36 for the record, but I definitely wasn't groomed to run a business. Like, I was never told this is who you're going to be and this is how it's going to go and this is what you should expect. And so there's also the additional disadvantage, I think, for women, whereby we are struggling innately with this, like, is this the right thing for me? And, do I have the permission to do this? And am I capable of doing this? And that mental game is, it takes time to become fit to play that mental game. It does.
Absolutely.
It takes training.
I think in like confidence it's sometimes it's like a topic that we're like, okay, but what is confidence? And I think if you translate confidence to Dutch, it's zelfvertrouwen. So it means literally confidence in yourself is a literal word, but then it's like attached together. And
Beautiful.
I feel like that's such a good thing. And I believe like, belief is such a big part there, believing in yourself. And I think, for example, for me, my parents have gone through enormous financial difficulty when I was younger. And none of that was fun, but I learned a lot from it. They did too. But the fun part about it is, or like, aside from that, my dad talked to me about business when I was 6 years old. And he was, I mean, there's also a bunch of issues that have arisen from that for me, of being like way too performance focused. I'm like, if I perform well, I'm loved. So like, that's a whole other storyline. But from a really young age, despite the fact that I had 3 brothers, my dad talked to me about business. And they were always like mentally supporting me in, like, I started this little jewelry shop when I was 10. Then I started my first like fitness business, and they were always supporting of the fact that I did that. So they were always allowing me to take up space as a business owner. And I think that is what we don't get taught usually, especially as women, especially with parents who aren't entrepreneurs, especially within an environment who believes it's safe to not do your own thing, but to work for someone else or whatever. Like, everyone can do what they want, but you're not taught to take up space. And I did get that head start. I was taught to take up space, not in every area, but in the business area, I was taught that. So I do think that's a really big advantage I got.
That's amazing. I mean, I think, and what you're touching on there in terms of childhood.
Yeah. Also, by the way, the reason I'm saying this is because I want to be like, I'm aware of this fact.
Yeah,
it's a privilege.
That is a privilege, and self-awareness is another kind of, I think that's why business is such a beautiful vehicle for personal growth, right? Like, it does force you every day to come up against your inadequacies and your limiting beliefs and your stories and your fears, and simply by the virtue of, like, if you want to grow a business, you're going to have to overcome all of the, well, not all of them all at once, but one by one, you're going to have to challenge the things that are keeping you small in order to grow bigger. And what I love about that story that you just shared is that I think, the things that shape us in our childhood, and often the most challenging aspects of our childhood they are our greatest setbacks, but they can also become our greatest gifts if we let them. And, you know, it sounds like for you that double-edged sword has been both of those things. It certainly was the case for me. It's certainly, you know, I speak to a lot of, you know, and a lot of other entrepreneurs and a lot of people that we coach, and same goes for them. And the more you can focus, I think, or transform your setbacks into gifts through the insights that they allow you, the further you'll go, the more the more success you can enjoy. So,
and I think what I believe in is that, so the way I realized this was because I was identifying the success factors for my coaching clients, and I was doing this with Laura, who I was previously talking about, who works with me, who had the really cute baby, and we were talking about like what is that difference between the coachees who are like still struggling and the coachees who are thriving, and we saw that it was belief. So then I started thinking about it, because obviously, okay, if I got a little bit of that, because I also got a lot of things in my life that like threw that down or away, how can we facilitate more of that with our coaches so they can get that advantage and like create that for themselves if they didn't get it in their childhood, because most of us don't get that. And that concept of belief is so strong, because it makes it so that when the dodgeballs hit you, you do feel the pain, but that belief never wavers. And I think sometimes I do lose belief in myself. But for example, I've learned to not lose the belief in what I'm doing, in my mission. And reverting to that, like, okay, so my battery's empty. I don't believe myself right now. Like, I feel like I suck, and I'm gonna sit on the couch or call a friend or drink a glass of wine or whatever it is. I don't advertise coping with alcohol. Just want to put that out there. Always have to disclaim.
I do love a glass of wine, but yeah, go on.
Yes. Like, okay, wallow in that. But I've had this. So I had a really big breakup this summer, and it happened in the middle of the biggest launch of the year for me.
Oh gosh.
And there was a point there where I was like, so for this final phase of the launch, should I just give up? Because like I can't anymore. I was so tired. Lives and sales were going well, but I was like, you know what? I am the boss. I could just stop. I can just stop launching. And I was like, I won't, because although I don't necessarily need it, I know that these people need this program, and I can't not offer it to them. I am going to keep going so I can help more people, because I truly believe that what I'm doing is what's going to help them get there. And that is something that's helped me immensely. When I lose belief in myself, I just focus on the thing that I'm offering, and then I can keep going. This is turning into an interview of me interviewing me.
Well, no, but also what you just said is so, what's beautiful about it. And one of the things, you know, that one of the best pieces of advice that I was ever given, in which is what you've just learned to do, is to get out of your own way. And the way that we do that often is by coming to grips with the fact that as humans, we are mammals, and mammals are social beings. And the fact of being a mammal is we will do a lot more for other people than we will do for ourselves, right? And that goes for like, oh, you know, you don't feel like cleaning your house, but if you've got people coming over, you'll clean it for them so that they don't judge you, right? Like there's that kind of social pressure. But it also means that if you can tie your business purpose to a meaning that is greater than just whatever it is that you want for yourself personally, you are going to tie yourself to a responsibility and a calling that is bigger than you are. And, you know, as and when you do that, you find, as you did, you know, even in a time that was really difficult for you, right, in the middle of this huge launch that would have been exhausting and going through a breakup, you found an extra reserve of energy inside of you, which came from being tied to a why that was bigger than just, I want more money, or, you know, I want the, I don't know, whatever ego driven things are that as business owners, we often, you know, tie our success to. And that's actually such an epic tip, what you've just shared, because it's true. If you can find an external calling that's related to helping others, which is really what we're in business to do, right, is to serve others in whatever your business is, whether you're, selling widgets or coaching or, printing magazines or what, like ultimately we are there to serve others in some way. That is why business is so beautiful, and actually why capitalism can be so beautiful. It's all a game of focus. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love that insight.
I think it's just a good tip that maybe I needed some space to give people, because we did an extra, like in sales, this translated to an extra 150,000 euros in sales in probably
Amazing.
a week or something. But it definitely resulted in about 70 extra clients who we are now able to help coach to their own freedom-based life where they can make impact. And I'm really happy I get to help those people. And my team is really happy. So that was good. I also know whenever I start doubting myself, because this still really, like, it happens less often in my capabilities as a coach. I used to doubt that a lot. Now it happens more like as a team leader, and then probably that will start wearing off a little bit, and then there will be something else. So it's like different levels. When I have it as a coach with my coaching programs, I go back to the content. I dive into the content and I start falling in love again with my program. And then I'm like, okay, I believe in this program. I believe in the content, and then I'm good to go again. But Georgia, what you don't know is about a year ago, you created a story where you had a piece of paper with your mission on it. You created this with your partners, with Kate and with Lauren. And it said I don't remember if it was like a 5-year goal of 10 million, and it had a bunch of things on it. I have a screenshot of that story on my phone because I was going on a work retreat and I saw that and I saw you just crushing it. And I was like, holy shit, this is so inspiring, because I had hit 1 million by then, like with like the launch and done a bunch of big stuff. But you were like a 10 million goal. And I was like, fuck, I don't have a 10 million goal. So I screenshotted that and I brought it to a work retreat with my own business partner, pulled that screenshot up at least 5 times during that week, and was like, but Georgia. And I was like talking about it. I was like analyzing what you were doing. And from that, I really decided to get my shit together a bit more. Although, I mean, I had enough shit together, but I was just like so inspired by you putting it out there. And just, you guys were just like, we're going to go after it quickly. Like a fucking train, or a really fast train. And that's been so inspiring to me. But I can imagine it hasn't been easy to just get so focused or so aligned, especially during a worldwide pandemic. How have you done this mindset-wise? Because you are so focused and you inspire me every day. Because like a chief storytelling officer, I'm like, I need to be chief storytelling officer. And I watch your stories. I'm like, Georgia is so good at storytelling. Like, to anyone listening, you need to follow Georgia if you want to learn more about storytelling, because you do that in such a good way. Sorry, I had to like spread this love for a second, because maybe you don't know, but I see those things and I've screenshotted those things and I'm really inspired by it.
Thank you. That is such a lovely thing to say. And look, if there's, I wouldn't say it's a regret of mine, but certainly the shift for me as a professional storyteller who's spent, almost 15 years telling the stories of some of the biggest outlets and the biggest brands on the planet. And neglecting my own brand and my own story, or I won't say neglecting, but let's say hiding behind other people's brands, hiding behind being an employee rather than running my own show. I was a little bit of a late starter to come to social, and obviously having Australia's first professional Instagrammer as my business partner, and having to work through when you're a journalist and you work in magazines, everything is very glossy, very perfect, very well thought through. You've got months and months of lead time, and a huge team, of which I sat at the top, refining all of your content over a period of months before it even reaches you, right? And so for me, I had a huge reluctance initially, a lot of fear and a lot of mental blocks in embracing the the authentic imperfection of social and the fast moving nature, right? Like just being able to share from stream of consciousness. So obviously I love your content, right back at you. Here's a love in. But yes, that's a lovely thing to say. In terms of the mindset shift, look, I would say that we sat down at the beginning of 2020, Lauren and I, Kate, we weren't in business with Kate then. And we set up, at that point, we'd just been running this kind of side hustle business, the Travel Boot Camp. And the Travel Boot Camp was our previous business, as I said earlier, get paid to travel the world. We put on these events and people would come and learn from us. And we sat down and we were like, okay, we actually really want to do this business. So how are we going to make $1 million this year, right? And if you think about it, at the beginning of 2020, putting on live events in person that taught people how to get paid to travel the world. Our main flagship event was meant to take place in Melbourne, which had one of the worst lockdowns on the planet. Basically, our entire plan by mid-February was burning down. And of course, I was an ambassador for an airline. Like our entire revenue streams for the year, all of them gone, almost overnight. And I'm not going to lie, like I cried. I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know how long this pandemic's going to go on for. You know, it could be a month or two, but we might not be back traveling until June or July. That's what that's what we said. And so, you know, I remember having a con call with Lauren and saying like, what are we going to do? How are we going to play this? You know, because the government at that point was already very early on was like, look, you can accept payments and no one needs to worry and blah, blah, blah. And we working in the tourism industry, there were a lot of people that were very, very stressed, very upset, very frightened. And just like you did, I think we came to the realization that actually there was a real opportunity to be leaders at a time when no one was being visible on social. Really, there was a lot of fear and a lot of brands went very quiet. No one was saying much. And we decided to step up and be a shining light that could help people navigate their way through this crisis in a way that saw them take back some control and some power. And so, you know, of course, in business, the way that to help people is always by solving a problem for them. And so, you know, we started by teaching people how to build a travel following from their couch, right? Which was something that a lot of people didn't realize was possible, but of course is. And simply by finding a way to serve people, which again was the mindset flip that we needed in order to feel pulled towards a higher purpose than just looking out for ourselves. I think energetically, I think the universe rewards intention, and our intention was so good in that time. And so even though tourism, events, and aviation absolutely all crashed to a halt at the beginning of 2020, and our entire careers basically at that point were predicated on those three industries, the fact that we managed to basically, you know, crack the $1 million mark for the first time, I think is really a testament to intention. And so that was really rewarding. And by the end of last year, you know, we were very tired and decided that 2020, that we wanted to do something different. So we burned that to the ground and started again with Phoenix. And that was very scary, I will say, you know, starting a new brand and deciding that we were going to do 7 figures in our first year, and that we wanted to build an 8-figure business as quickly as possible, and that we want to build a 9-figure business ultimately. And, you know, like it was, and I have no idea how to build a 9-figure business yet. No idea. I'm just stepping into, I'm going to show up today with the humility to hopefully learn from the information that I'm being given, because the universe is always giving us subtle cues, right? Subtle hints. Don't do that. Do that. You should do more of that. Don't do less of that, right? Like there's always these little subtle things, these signs that we're being shown. And most of us are too busy or too much in our heads to pay attention. And hopefully having the humility and the consciousness to be slow enough to and courageous enough to step forward in the ways that are going to help me grow my business and serve as many people as possible. Hopefully those things will be revealed to me at a rate that I can handle and that I can execute.
Oh no.
on.
Yeah, no. That
You're
you
right.
can
You're
handle
right.
with tears.
I'm not going to have you, of course. Yeah, and you know, of course there'll be tears. There have been so many stressful days. It's like parenting, I think, right? Like a business is a child. It needs constant attention and care and love and fostering, and you're going to doubt yourself, and there's going to be sleepless nights. And
Yeah.
I think,
Because I run a second business with a business partner, and it's not yet a 7-figure business. It will be, I think, this year. But
awesome.
that's like, we say that like that's our baby. We have a baby. We have a family together. Like, she's my work wife, and we have a baby, and yeah, you need a lot of tender love and care for that.
You do. And you do need family that you can trust.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I feel like with my team, I feel like it's been really difficult building a team because mostly because of myself, I've had to do a lot of stuff in the past year that felt like I was only doing things I couldn't do yet. Everything was difficult and I wasn't good at any of it. Like this, I'm good at talking. Coaching, I've got under control. Like my Thursdays are my coaching days, and I know I will thrive and I'll be so happy. But all of the other days in my calendar was just so difficult because I was doing things I didn't know yet how to do the entire time. And I realized like, whoa, this is way too much difficult stuff. But right now it's starting to feel more in flow. I'm so proud of my team and I get so much energy back from them. And I'm so grateful I went through those steps. And now it feels like I have a small army at my side. So that's really fun. But what I've been struggling with a lot, and I'm really wondering how you deal with this, is I know when I go on a trip, for example, I went to Dubai recently, it was really great. When I zoom out, I have immense clarity, immense alignment. Like that's part of who I am as an entrepreneur. And I can see things and I'm so creative. And if I do like a disc profile or whatever, I have a lot of like influence, a lot of the yellow creative stuff. But in the day to day, I am CEO, coach, creator, marketing manager, so many different roles. And when I step too much into my CEO role, I start burning out at a certain point because it's too much of the hard side.
Yeah.
When I'm only coaching, that's also not good. Like I need that balance between the creator coach personality and the CEO personality. But I noticed that I was doing not enough of the creator and coach personality. So I wasn't making enough time for content, storytelling, for talking to inspirational people like what we're doing right now. And it was becoming more of I'll batch my podcasts and I'll record 4 episodes in the morning. And I went through the motions. So my inspiration was lower because I was so deep in the day to day. And I had a couple of weeks of immense clarity. I had COVID, had to stay at home during Christmas, couldn't see my family and all of that. That was hectic, but also good. And now we're back and it's so busy. And I'm like, yeah, it's just now because like I need to finish writing a book this weekend. Next weekend, I have 2 days of podcast recordings. Then we have a pre-order. And then the week after, I'm hosting a challenge. Like,
damn.
I don't know. But
Yeah. Okay.
how do you manage that feeling of alignment is what I might call it, and that like focus, the eyes on the prize, like in the sumo suit, while you are so busy because you do so much. How do you manage that?
Yeah, that is such a great question. And I actually love that you've asked me this because I'm very, very passionate about the answer. And you don't even know what I'm going to say yet.
No.
So yeah, for those of you listening, this is absolutely not planned. But so first of all, when I first started in magazines, right, all those years ago, I remember like I had been desperate to be a writer, right? Like to become a writer, to get paid to write. That had been like my dream at university and at the end of high school. I was like, if I can do that, like my life is made. And once I got into magazines, maybe 6 months in, I remember one of my staff members. Can you imagine a 23-year-old, by the way? My team were all sort of 40-year-old women plus. Like it was a really big learning curve. But I remember one of them, she was, she would have been mid-40s and she was jaded, right? Like she'd been writing for a really long time. And I remember her saying, I am so sick of generating copy. And those words, generating copy, right? To me, writing, the art of writing and the privilege and the joy, like I was so naive and, fresh faced, and it was so exciting for me. And she was so, I have done this for so long that there is no glamour and no excitement and no passion left in it for me. And I think, ideally, once you get into business, where you want to sit is in between the two of those, right? It's and we all sort of straddle different personality types, and some of us are more visionary and some of us are more analytical, and whatever the balance is that's right for you. Definitely, you want to make sure that you're in a job that ties your vision and your meaning and your higher purpose to daily tasks that even if you're not that inspired by, still have a sense of fulfillment associated with them because they're important to you about where they're going. But for me, the lesson that I had to learn very much the hard way, and the thing that has kept me on track and inspired consistently in my business, actually dates back to what I learned when I went to rehab. So, I have, when in my 20s, I actually suffered from a terrible eating disorder. I know you know this from my stories because I've shared about it a lot. I by the time I was 30, I had this sort of career crash, and I ended up taking a year out of my career and going and being in rehab to recover from an eating disorder. And they used to have a saying there, which they had actually adopted from a different type of rehab, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, what they would say about keeping sober was, you can't get clean today from yesterday's shower. You can't get clean today from yesterday's shower. And what that means is, every single day when you wake up, you have to do the things that you know that you need to do in order to look after yourself and keep your mental well-being and your physical well-being in tip-top condition, so that you can show up in tip-top condition for your business or for your life, right? When you're recovering from an eating disorder, we're not dealing with business success. We're just dealing with how to live a life that's, balanced. But the idea of self-care was completely new and radical to me. And I'm actually, it's not so much necessarily about balance. I don't really think that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you can be like, it's 5 o'clock and I'm done for the day and bye. Like balance is a nice idea, and moderation is a nice idea. But if you're entrepreneurial, there are going to be times where you are out of balance, and that's okay. If you've got a higher calling and you know that you need to push through, then that's just part of what it means to be successful. However, if you aren't taking the time out to, put oil in your engine, you are going to run your car into the ground. And so whatever that looks like for you, if it's 2 weeks in Dubai to refresh, for me, it's like I'm quite athletic and I train quite hard, which is also a form of work, but it's a joy that gets me into my body and gets me out of my head. Eating well. I'm a reader. Like whatever it is, self-care is actually necessary. There is no point living a life and hustling so hard that you are not actually enjoying the experience of being physically in your body. Because if you are not enjoying the physical experience of being alive, then why the fuck are you here?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I love that. I recently recorded an episode on for Valentine's Day, actually, on self-love, self-care, self-discipline, like all the ways self-care actually, what self-care can mean. And for me lately, it's been a lot about self-discipline.
Yes.
Getting through that big breakup, still taking so much care of myself. I've been losing a lot of stress weight. Like my body's slowly going back to being my body is what it's starting to feel like currently. I strength train a lot. That's my type of, that's Amazing. What I really love doing, but I didn't love getting back to it in the beginning. It was really hard. And now I'm starting to feel like I can do it again. And like for me, a good morning starts with a good evening where you go to bed on time, and sleep is just such a linchpin. It's so many things, but that gave me this question that popped up a few months ago. And I talked to my mom about this. I'm curious to see what you will say. I just realized for myself, there is no one in the world who's like hyper successful who doesn't take great care of their body, for example. And body being for me, it's also the mind, but the combination of like the sleep and the eating well and the working out and all of that stuff. I'm like, or like 95% of the people you imagine to be wildly successful, you can't imagine them just eating fast food at the end of the day, just working from the couch in sloppy clothes, stuff like that. So I was like, is that the reason for their success? Or is it why they get to do what they do every day? Because like, I have to admit, for me, I couldn't do what I do every day if I didn't have those habits set in place, that I do work out in the morning, that like right now I'm practicing cold showers. I don't love it yet, but I see like today I turned off my shower without going cold and was like, nope, it's turned cold. Eating well, all of that stuff. I even hired a full-time assistant who's actually a nanny to take care of me, literally. So I have like the healthy food and everything always prepped because I'm not good at it. And I couldn't do what I'm doing today without that immense amount of self-discipline and self-care. But is that needed? Like, what do you think? Is that the reason for someone's success? Is it just those types of people just do those things, or what is that?
Well, I'm curious to hear what your mum said, actually. But yeah, I think that's a really great question. And I would suggest that it really defines on what your definition of success is, right? Who these really successful people are. And to me, success, external success is how we typically define and look, right? We look at material wealth. We look at all those external markers that they've got the fast cars, they've got the private jet, they've got the 8-figure, 9-figure business, whatever it is, right? Like these. They're fit, they look fit, whatever. But to me, success is probably a bit more holistic than that, and probably a bit more simple. The way I define success is in 2 words: feeling good. And feeling good is actually a really tough thing to experience consistently if you are not looking after yourself. And so you could actually be somebody with a lot of the external material success, right? Who's got the private jets and whatever, but you could be enormously overweight, or you could be such a stressed out executive that you are surviving on sleeping tablets and vodka when you go to sleep at night. And then, or you're sleeping under your desk, like all the investment bankers in New York, right? Like there's that cliche as well. There's lots of people who've got financial success, but aren't actually successful in my book. And I think the more conscious you get in your business, and the more aware you become of your own self-limiting stories, and the more aware you become of the present, right? And of being connected to yourself and of trusting your intuition, just by the requisite of what business requires. Typically what that means is you've got 2 choices. You can either be someone who's so driven by ego that they flog themselves and they're actually really disconnected from themselves and being driven to success because of these external metrics, or you can be somebody who is called to success and is driven by their higher purpose and a sense of connectedness that becomes deeper and deeper with time. And the more connected you are to yourself, typically what starts to happen is when you start to get stressed or you don't work out, you start to notice, ooh, I'm not feeling very good. I actually need to, as a matter of priority, stop, recalibrate, get back in my body, and then continue on. And obviously that second type of success is way more appealing. At least it is obvious to me and in my book. And I think that's probably the type of success that you are observing, because you are also definitely leaning into that intuitive type of holistic definition of it than the ego driven. And I also think as well that other definition is kind of the outdated old one, right? Like, especially as more feminine energy comes into the entrepreneurial space, where we're becoming the old narratives about like hustle hard and grind and, that sort of alpha toxic bro culture. It's falling away as we ask ourselves questions about like, what is real success? What is real purpose? Do I need hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, or can I actually, donate 96% of my wealth to the foundation that I've set up, like, Mark Zuckerberg's just done, or Melanie Perkins with Canva, or like, I think it's changing, and it's becoming more intuitive, it's becoming more feminine, and it's becoming more holistic. And as a result of all of those things, both externally in the global narratives and conversations in the entrepreneurial space, but also internally with the narratives we're having with ourselves, things like looking after our bodies, which seems so simple, but is so profound, are of course becoming bigger priorities. So I think that's a really great question to ask. And yes, if you're not feeling good, I don't care how successful you are. It's not.
Yeah, then it's not like it depends on your definition of success. And if someone's definition of success is like, for example, there's this whole culture of like this guy I used to date is like millionaires by 30. And I've always said like, yeah, and if the goal is to then get a heart attack by 30, like what's the point of making the million? Like it's not, that's the extreme hustle culture. I do have to add that for me, there is a little bit of a dark side to this, namely that the more holistic version of the whole, if you're not having fun while you're doing it or not feeling good while you're doing it, then that also kind of, I mean, I know you know this, but I feel like we need to put this out there because like I've literally just created an entire membership about it. It's called like the Alpha Tribe. We talk about like health plus ambition or healthy ambition, because right now we have two extremes in our culture. We have like the very extreme hustle hard, what's the movie? The Wall Street Wolf? No.
Wolf of Wall
What's
Street.
the movie with DiCaprio? Yes. Yeah. And then on the other end, we have the whole self-care until you die on the couch right now. And I'm like, it's neither of those, but it has led me to being like, can we talk about the fact that maybe the second week of January got more busy than we intended, but we're still going to go through with it? Because it's also, you're also paying your dues. I feel like there's no room left to be tired or to have a bad day anymore. It's like everything has to be sunshine and rainbows. It's also not true. I do feel like that's a little bit of an Instagram problem right now.
I absolutely, and as I was saying it, and I was thinking, even though that is my definition, success is feeling good, the caveat that I wanted to add to it, which you've so beautifully summarized, and also which you spoke about before, is first of all, it's understanding that success and feeling good doesn't necessarily mean sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes it means getting to the end of a really fucking hard day and looking yourself in the mirror and going, I'm proud of myself. I'm tired. My voice is scratchy. My eyes are sore. I'm my back hurts because I spent so long at the computer and my shoulders are tense, but I am proud of myself for how I showed up, for the discipline, for the work ethic, whatever, right? That is also feeling good. It's not like, oh yeah, business should be fun and let's all just have a joyful time. And I only worked 7 hours this whole month and you can too, right? That's I mean, sure, if you think if that's what you want and that's I think that's
it upsets me. Dangerous. It also just upsets me when people lie about it.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm like, you don't have to make it out to be all perfect, because anyone who has grown a business knows that there are late nights, there are stressful mornings, there are bad days, and that's something I want to normalize. Also in the phase I'm at. And there's the added thing of like, sometimes when you have a bad day as a business coach, it feels like you're an out of shape personal trainer. You're like, oops, am I allowed to still like serve and teach people now if like I messed up today or I messed up my time management? But for me, letting go of that shame around that and just normalizing it and being like, you know what, I'm still allowed to have bad days. I'm still allowed to fuck up my schedule, although I'm really good at time management and all of that stuff. It's really helped me. And I think that's something that so many service-based entrepreneurs struggle with when they're growing. They're like, I need to have everything in perfect order in order to like being allowed to serve people. You're not. And I think the extreme hustle culture, yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And let's face it, there's this saying by Gary Vee, eat shit for 5 years, eat caviar for the rest of your life. I don't feel like you need to eat shit, but I do get what he says with that statement. I do get it because, let's be honest, the dodgeballs are painful and you're running really fast.
The dodgeballs are really painful and you are running really fast. What do you think has been the biggest dodgeball that you have faced since the pandemic started? Or maybe even just over the course of your business, your business journey, your entrepreneurial journey?
I think in the course of the past 2 years with the pandemic, for me, I mean, the answer will always be myself. My struggle was the past 2 years for me has been building a team, all of that. So keeping the focus while growing the team. but being so confronted with my own lack of knowledge and skills. And that was new to me because I had come to a point where I was like, I'm smart, I know what I'm doing, I'm good at this stuff. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I have too many people on my wait list. I have to kill my darling, my program, create a new program. So I had to do that, but I was getting really comfortable. I was like, I'm selling out these masterminds, scoring really well. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, now that that's up and like ready to go, I need to change everything. And I went from having 30 clients in a mastermind to 375 people in one program.
That's
A lot of
incredible.
things pop up then. You have to let go of control. You have to like quality control, team members. There's just so much. But I think definitely, I think what happened to me in the past 2 years is what happens to starting entrepreneurs. It's just a really big lack of confidence and belief in myself because I really didn't know if I could do it. And I'm grateful that I had my dad to call sometimes for tips about leadership. But I've cried about that growth so often because I started getting afraid. I started doubting myself so much. So I think it's confidence, and I'm starting to feel more confident again. I don't know. I hadn't thought about that yet. That's what it feels like to me. And I think it's much like in the beginning years of your business.
Can I just say, I really just want to acknowledge the honesty that you just displayed in sharing that. I think as we move into this kind of new, more feminine era of entrepreneurialism, and I've got all the answers, follow me, I'm the alpha leader of the pack, I'm bulletproof, nothing bad ever happens. As that gives way to, oh, everything's sunshine and rainbows and business can be really fun, and that gives way to, actually, the fact of the matter is nothing is neither as good or as bad as anybody makes it to be. We're all humans muddling through in the middle, that in an experience that involves the whole spectrum of what it means to be human, especially when you're put in the challenging conditions of growing a business. I think it's so it's refreshing to hear you say that sometimes you have bad days and that sometimes you question things. And I think that's normal. I think we all do at various stages for various reasons. And that's an important part of the growing process, which doesn't ever stop. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure your listeners, anybody listening, will also, I'm sure, be thanking you as nodding along as they're listening to this.
It's I try to be as vulnerable as possible, although I always feel the need to like disclaim and be like, oh, but that also happened, this and that, and you never have enough time to talk about everything. But I feel like it's just, that's really what we need right now, is like the real behind the scenes, the real and raw. And what you shared is so beautiful. And I do want to ask you so many more questions about it. Like, how do you make sure that, every day is clean and not from yesterday's shower? Or how do we have to put that? Because you have so many great habits. But I think I will have to ask you back for starters. And I think my audience should definitely start following you. But for you, not what has been your biggest mindset thing or habit from the past years, but looking at this upcoming year, Georgia, what is your intention? What is your intention for this upcoming year for yourself to reach those new goals?
That's a great question.
Because then we can follow you doing it.
Yeah. I think look, I woke up on the first day of 2022 and I went down to the water and I watched the sunrise at the beach near my house here in Sydney. And I wrote out my goals and I, wrote out what I'm thankful for. And, I can tell you about like the money and the staff and the lists that we want, the awards and all those external things, right? And ultimately, I think underneath all that, before I'm a business person, I'm a person. And as a person, the thing that I want to do most, the thing that I am here to do most in my life, that I think we are all here to do most, is to become the most fully self-expressed and self-realized versions of ourselves that we can be, right? Like just like we were when we were kids, not afraid to share openly from the heart, not afraid to get up on stage and, perform a dance with just that beautiful customary openness that kids have. And the joy and the beauty and the love that emanates from kids, that by the time we're adults, we've sort of shut off from, and, oh, I can't say that, and I can't do that, and I can't be that, and, oh, that's not possible for me, and all that kind of, all the shit, all the silly little stories that we have. As far as I'm concerned, we are all here on this earth to reverse all of those doors that we've shut on ourselves in our own minds, and step into being the biggest, best versions, the most joyful versions of ourselves that we can. And as somebody who, nearly died from an eating disorder 6 years ago, and who is, the process of coming out of that, I actually, for the first 2.5 years of my journey, I cried every single day consecutively. It was an extreme outpouring of grief that left me changed forever. But really, all I'm here to do is continue to step into giving myself permission to being the next biggest version of myself. And in doing that, I also want to give the people around me permission to do that for themselves too. So for 2022, I don't know precisely what that looks like. I just know that it means kinder, braver, louder, bigger, more generous, calmer, funnier, happier. All the things the world needs.
Brave is such a big word there, in being big and taking up space, in the whole belief, like being brave enough to believe in yourself is being brave enough to take up space. So beautiful. I'm so happy with this. I would love to listen to this episode.
Well, I'm so touched that you would ask me. I mean, I know we haven't even seen each other in person since you came to my apartment, 4 years ago?
Fell asleep while I was there.
Did you? I don't remember that. There was a lot of wine consumed.
There was a lot of wine, and I was super jet lagged, and I was like, I remember I really felt like a baby. Like I knew back then, I knew some stuff, but I didn't know how to get it out there yet. And Matthew was with me, and he was like, my sister is smart, but I was like, I didn't have the maturity and the confidence yet that I do think I have now, or the experience of being taken seriously. It's fun to look back on that and realize how far I've come in a couple of years, what it feels like to me. So yeah, this has been so much fun. Georgia, where can people follow your journey?
Yeah, well, probably Instagram is the easiest place to connect. My handle is just my name, Georgia Rickard, GeorgiaRickard. I do love an Insta story.
Yeah, you're so good at them. I love it. We'll definitely link up your profile also in the article and just in the handle, and people will see it everywhere. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you would like to add to today's episode? I think you might have just done it, but
I think ultimately, if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out to me directly, I'm pretty responsive to DMs. So by all means do. But other than that, no. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Oh, actually, there is one other thing. You could also check out our business Instagram if you like, which is Phoenix. It's spelled in a funny way, very fancy way, PHHNIX.
I'll link it too, so they can follow along. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. I had a really great time. Thank you for being so open and honest and sharing your journey. And let's do this again soon.
Love to. The world needs more openness. So you're doing a great thing.
Definitely. Thank you, Georgia. So that was that. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I had a lot of fun recording it, and we touched on that subject of belief. And I know that growing confidence in your business and handling those growing pains can be a real challenge, which is why I created something for you that can help you, hopefully. Namely, I created a belief book. So if you feel like fear of failure is holding you back, if you feel like those dodgeballs are just hurting too much and you could use some help with your imposter syndrome so you can step into that most powerful, most successful version of yourself, I have a belief book for you. I've linked it up in the description. You can grab it through fastforwardamy.com/belief book. These are many of the principles I teach my Business Freedom Elevator clients. Mindset is such a key topic in becoming the most successful version of yourself. In any of my programs, mindset will always be module 0 that you get immediate access to, because I just know that it might not be obvious to you, but I know that mindset is going to be the biggest differentiator between where you are right now and where you can go. So feel free to grab the belief book. It's a full ebook that I wrote specifically for you. It's available in English and in Dutch, and you can grab it through fastforwardamy.com/belief book. Then I would love to see you back here next week, Tuesday, for a new episode of the Fast Forward Amy Show.